announcing today a major show of military force in the region.
The night sea looks calm, but calm is the last thing it represents. Beneath the surface of the Persian Gulf, tension is building in silence. Warships move without lights. Radars sweep the horizon. Somewhere beyond the darkness, fingers hover over launch buttons. This is not a drill, and this is not history. This is now. As the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group takes position, military analysts around the world begin asking the same question. How close are we to the first naval clash between Iran and the United States in decades? Official statements are cautious, measured, diplomatic. But navies do not reposition thousands of sailors, aircraft, and missiles for symbolism alone. According to regional security reports, Iranian naval units have increased patrols near strategic waterways. Fast attack boats, coastal missile batteries, and unmanned systems are believed to be on heightened alert. The geography favors no one. Narrow sea lanes, crowded shipping routes, and limited reaction time mean that a single miscalculation could ignite a battle no one publicly claims to want. An aircraft carrier is not just a ship. It is a floating airbase, a command center, and a message written in steel. When it enters a strike position, it signals readiness for rapid, overwhelming force. Fighter jets sit fueled on deck. Destroyers form a defensive ring. Submarines, unseen and unheard, take their places below the waves. Every movement is deliberate. Every movement is observed. What makes a naval confrontation especially dangerous is speed. Missiles travel faster than diplomacy. Decisions are made in seconds, not days. A radar contact misidentified. A warning shot misunderstood. A drone flying too close. History shows that wars at sea often begin without declarations, without speeches, without time to pull back. Experts warn that modern naval combat would look nothing like the battles of the past. There would be no long exchanges of gunfire, no clear front lines. Instead, the opening minutes could decide everything. Aircraft launched before sunrise, electronic warfare blinding sensors, precision strikes aimed at disabling command and control before anyone can fully grasp what is happening. Meanwhile, the rest of the world watches nervously. 1/3 of global oil trade passes through nearby waters. Insurance rates climb. Markets react. Governments issue travel warnings. Behind closed doors, diplomats scramble to contain a crisis that may already be slipping beyond their reach. This is not just a story about two countries. It is a story about how fragile stability at sea has become, about how modern navies prepare for conflicts they hope never to fight, and about how, in the darkness between patrol routes and radar screens, the line between deterrence and disaster can vanish without warning. Tonight, the sea holds its breath, and the question remains unanswered. Will these ships sail away, or will history record this moment as the beginning of a naval battle that reshaped the world? In the current confrontation between the United States and Iran, naval power has become the central instrument of pressure, signaling, and potential escalation. Unlike land forces, which require weeks or months to mobilize visibly, fleets can shift the balance of power quietly and rapidly. Warships appear on radar long before intentions are declared, and their presence alone reshapes the strategic environment. In this standoff, the sea is not merely a backdrop, but the primary arena where messages are sent and limits are tested. The waters of the Persian Gulf have long been one of the most militarized maritime regions on the planet. Narrow passages, shallow depths, and constant commercial traffic create a setting where naval encounters are inherently risky. For decades, both sides have studied this environment in detail, adapting their doctrines to its constraints. For the United States, naval dominance at sea represents freedom of movement, the ability to project air power far inland, and the assurance that global trade routes remain open. For Iran, the same waters represent leverage, a space where asymmetric tactics can challenge a technologically superior opponent. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, and support vessels are not deployed randomly. Their positioning reflects calculations about deterrence, reaction time, and escalation control. When an American carrier strike group moves closer to Iranian waters, it is widely understood as a signal that air operations could begin within hours if ordered. Analysts note that a single carrier can generate more combat sorties per day than many regional air forces combined, making it a decisive tool even without firing a shot. This reality is well established and openly acknowledged in military doctrine. At the same time, Iran's naval strategy is built around denying access rather than matching strength ship for ship. Its regular Navy and Revolutionary Guard naval units emphasize speed, dispersion, and surprise. Swarms of fast boats, coastal missile systems, sea mines, and drones are designed to complicate any large fleet's operations. Western intelligence assessments have repeatedly stated that even a limited clash could result in damage to high-value vessels, not because of overwhelming firepower, but due to the density and unpredictability of the maritime environment. In recent weeks, regional observers have reported unusually high levels of naval readiness on both sides. While official sources speak of routine patrols, satellite imagery and maritime traffic data suggest more frequent maneuvering near key sea lanes. Unconfirmed reports claim that several Iranian missile units have been placed on shortened alert cycles, reducing launch preparation times from hours to minutes. Though such claims cannot be fully verified, they align with Iran's long-standing emphasis on rapid response at sea. The strategic importance of naval forces is also tied directly to global economics. The Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant portion of the world's energy supplies transit, lies within range of naval and coastal systems from both sides. Any disruption, even temporary, would ripple far beyond the region. This reality amplifies the political weight of every naval movement, transforming routine maneuvers into global headlines. Some defense analysts speculate that both sides are deliberately operating closer than usual to test reactions, collect electronic intelligence, and probe response thresholds. According to one leaked assessment, a recent naval exercise included simulated scenarios involving electronic jamming and drone interception in congested waters, suggesting preparation for highly compressed decision-making environments. While no evidence indicates an imminent battle, the margin for error appears thinner than at any point in recent years. Ultimately, naval power in this confrontation serves a dual role. It is both a shield and a provocation, a stabilizing force meant to deter aggression, and a constant reminder of how quickly deterrence can fail. The sea offers no clear lines, no visible borders, only moving steel and human judgment. In such conditions, the strategic significance of naval forces lies not only in what they can do, but in what might happen if control is lost for even a moment. The potential area of a naval confrontation between the United States and Iran is defined less by clear borders and more by geography that amplifies risk. The most likely theater is the Persian Gulf, a confined body of water where distance, time, and reaction margins are severely compressed. In some locations, opposing vessels can be within missile range minutes after first contact, leaving almost no room for de-escalation once an incident begins. This makes the region uniquely dangerous compared to open ocean environments where fleets can maneuver with greater freedom. The Persian Gulf's physical characteristics shape every naval calculation. Its shallow depths restrict submarine operations and limit evasive maneuvering for large ships. Commercial tankers, fishing vessels, and patrol boats crowd the same waters used by warships, creating a constant background of radar contacts and visual clutter. In such an environment, distinguishing between civilian traffic and potential threats is not always immediate. Naval officers familiar with the area have privately acknowledged that identification errors are among their greatest fears, particularly at night or during periods of heightened alert. At the heart of this region lies the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically sensitive waterways on the planet. Only a few dozen kilometers wide at its narrowest point, it funnels a massive share of global energy shipments through two tightly defined shipping lanes. Control of this corridor is not merely a military objective, but an economic pressure point with worldwide consequences. Even rumors of instability here are enough to unsettle markets and trigger emergency planning among major energy importers. Beyond the strait itself, attention also focuses on the Gulf of Oman, where naval forces have more space to operate, but remain close enough for rapid engagement. This area serves as a transition zone between the confined Gulf and the open ocean, making it a logical staging ground for carrier strike groups and support vessels. Analysts note that a clash here could still escalate quickly, as aircraft and long-range missiles would bridge the distance between forces in minutes. Recent maritime tracking data suggests increased military activity near these zones. While official explanations cite training and freedom of navigation patrols, independent analysts have pointed out patterns indicating deliberate proximity. In several instances, warships from opposing sides reportedly passed within distances that naval professionals consider uncomfortably close. One unconfirmed report claims that during a recent night transit, radar systems briefly locked onto multiple contacts simultaneously, forcing crews to switch from routine navigation to combat readiness in seconds. Although no weapons were fired, the incident reportedly prompted emergency communications through back channels to prevent escalation. The strategic importance of this area is magnified by the presence of coastal infrastructure. Ports, radar stations, and missile sites along the shoreline mean that naval forces are rarely operating in isolation. Ships at sea are continuously within range of land-based systems, blurring the line between naval and coastal defense operations. This integration increases both sides' situational awareness, but also shortens decision timelines, as threats may emerge from multiple directions at once. Some military planners believe that the greatest danger lies not in a planned offensive, but in an unintended encounter triggered by routine operations. Exercises conducted in recent years have simulated scenarios where unmanned aerial or surface vehicles drifted across perceived boundaries, prompting warning maneuvers that escalated rapidly. A leaked simulation summary suggested that in several runs, conflict began within the first 10 minutes due to misinterpretation of intent rather than deliberate aggression. Ultimately, the region's importance stems from its combination of strategic value and inherent volatility. It is a space where global commerce, regional power projection, and military doctrine collide in close quarters. Any naval confrontation here would not remain local for long. The geography ensures that even a limited clash would echo far beyond the horizon, transforming a regional flashpoint into an international crisis within hours. When analysts turn from geography to forces and tactics, the contrast between the naval capabilities of the United States and Iran becomes stark. On one side stands a blue-water navy built for global power projection, centered on carrier strike groups that combine air power, missile defense, and command and control into a single moving system. On the other is a force shaped by regional realities, optimized for coastal defense, disruption, and survival against a technologically superior opponent. As discussed earlier, the environment compresses time and space, but it is the interaction of these two very different naval philosophies that defines how a clash at sea might unfold. The American naval formation is designed around layered dominance. Carrier-based aircraft extend reach hundreds of kilometers beyond the horizon, while escorting destroyers and cruisers provide missile defense, anti-submarine warfare, and long-range strike capabilities. Submarines operate ahead of and beneath the surface group, gathering intelligence and silently shaping the battle space. This system has been refined through decades of exercises and real-world operations. What is less visible but equally important is the integration of space-based sensors, airborne early warning aircraft, and cyber capabilities that feed commanders a continuous stream of data. In theory, this network allows threats to be detected and neutralized before they fully materialize. Iran's naval forces operate under different assumptions. Rather than seeking control of the sea, they aim to contest it, exploiting proximity to shore and local knowledge. Their doctrine emphasizes saturation and uncertainty. Numerous small units, dispersed along the coast and at sea, can converge quickly, forcing an adversary to respond to multiple potential threats at once. Coastal missile batteries, mobile radar systems, and unmanned platforms are designed to appear, strike, and relocate before retaliation can be fully organized. While none of these elements alone rivals a carrier strike group, together, they are intended to complicate decision-making and impose costs disproportionate to their size. If confrontation moved from posture to action, The opening phase would likely be defined by information warfare as much as by firepower. Electronic interference, cyber disruption, and deceptive signals would attempt to blind sensors and delay reactions. According to one classified war game leaked several years ago, simulated engagements showed that the side that first lost situational awareness often suffered decisive losses within minutes. In some scenarios, false radar contacts generated by electronic means led commanders to misallocate defensive resources, creating openings elsewhere. Though such exercises are hypothetical, they reflect widely accepted concerns within naval planning circles. The kinetic phase, should it begin, would unfold with remarkable speed. Aircraft launched from carriers could strike targets at sea or along the coast before surface ships ever came within visual range. In response, Iranian forces would likely attempt to overwhelm defenses through numbers rather than precision, launching salvos intended to saturate missile defenses and force difficult choices about what to intercept. A senior Western analyst once described this as weaponized clutter, a tactic that turns quantity into a form of quality. Some recent intelligence estimates, not publicly confirmed, suggest that response times for certain systems have been shortened dramatically, increasing the tempo of any exchange. A critical factor in the possible course of battle is escalation control. Both sides possess the ability to strike beyond the immediate naval arena, but doing so would mark a qualitative shift in the conflict. Naval commanders are trained to operate under strict rules of engagement, yet those rules can change rapidly under political pressure or in response to unexpected losses. In several historical incidents at sea, limited engagements expanded not by design, but through retaliation cycles driven by incomplete information. As mentioned earlier, the compressed environment increases the likelihood of such dynamics. The middle phase of a naval clash would test endurance and adaptability. Damage control, logistics, and morale become as important as firepower. Modern warships are resilient, but even non-lethal damage can reduce combat effectiveness. In a little-known exercise conducted in the late 2000s, simulated damage to support vessels had outsized effects on operational tempo, forcing commanders to scale back missions despite retaining most of their combat ships. Some observers believe Iran would prioritize such targets, seeking to degrade sustainability rather than achieve dramatic battlefield victories. Speculation about the later stages of a confrontation often centers on whether either side could claim a clear success. From a purely military perspective, the United States would retain overwhelming advantages in sustained operations. However, Iran's objectives may not require long-term control or decisive victory. Disruption, demonstration of resilience, and the ability to impose uncertainty could be framed domestically and regionally as success. One unofficial assessment circulating among regional analysts argues that even a brief engagement that forces a pause in shipping or draws international mediation would meet key strategic goals, regardless of battlefield outcomes. The consequences of such a naval clash would extend far beyond the immediate participants. Markets, alliances, and diplomatic alignments would all be affected. Militarily, lessons learned would likely reshape naval doctrine worldwide, reinforcing trends toward unmanned systems, distributed forces, and rapid decision-making. Politically, even a contained battle would harden perceptions and narrow options for compromise. As referenced earlier, the global stakes ensure that no engagement remains isolated for long. In the end, combining the forces involved, the tactics employed, and the possible course of battle reveals a paradox. Both sides prepare intensely for a fight they publicly seek to avoid, knowing that if it begins, control may slip away faster than anticipated. The ships, aircraft, and crews at sea are not merely instruments of policy, but participants in a high-speed contest where technology, human judgment, and chance intersect. In such a setting, the outcome would be shaped not only by strength, but by restraint, timing, and the ability to interpret signals correctly before it is too late. The aftermath of a naval confrontation in the Gulf would unfold far beyond the sound of explosions or the movement of fleets discussed earlier. Even before a clear outcome emerged, the reaction of the international community would begin shaping the consequences. Governments, markets, and institutions would respond not only to what happened at sea, but to what the clash suggested about the future of global security. In modern geopolitics, perception often travels faster than verified facts, and this would be no exception. Within hours of confirmed hostilities, emergency meetings would likely be convened at the United Nations, with urgent calls for restraint echoing through official statements. Permanent members of the Security Council would issue carefully worded appeals that balanced condemnation with caution, aware that open alignment could inflame the situation further. Behind closed doors, diplomats would trade intelligence assessments and attempt to determine whether the clash was an isolated incident or the opening phase of a broader conflict. According to one leaked diplomatic cable, similar crises in the past saw more than half of negotiations focused not on stopping fighting, but on preventing allies from taking unilateral action. Financial markets would react almost instantly. Energy prices would spike on speculation alone, reflecting fears of prolonged instability rather than actual supply disruptions. Insurance firms would reassess risk models for shipping, temporarily rerouting commercial traffic and increasing costs worldwide. Some analysts believe that even a short naval clash could erase months of economic growth in vulnerable regions, not through physical damage, but through uncertainty. An unverified report circulated among traders after a recent near-crisis claimed that automated trading systems briefly halted transactions due to extreme volatility linked to maritime security alerts. Regional allies of the United States would face difficult choices. Publicly, many would support calls for de-escalation, while privately reinforcing defenses and reviewing contingency plans. Military bases would quietly raise alert levels, and intelligence sharing channels would intensify. At the same time, states seeking to avoid entanglement might adopt a more neutral tone, emphasizing stability and freedom of navigation rather than assigning blame. This balancing act would reflect fear of escalation, combined with recognition of long-term strategic dependencies. For Iran, the domestic narrative would be as important as the international one. State media would likely frame the confrontation as proof of resistance and sovereignty, regardless of tactical outcomes. Analysts note that previous crises show a strong emphasis on symbolic success, portraying endurance under pressure as victory. Some regional observers speculate that carefully selected footage or timelines could be released to reinforce this narrative, even if full details remained classified. Such information management would aim to consolidate internal support, while influencing regional perceptions. Non-state actors and aligned groups across the region would also react, interpreting the clash as a signal of shifting boundaries. Intelligence agencies have long warned that moments of high-profile confrontation often inspire secondary actions elsewhere, testing whether attention and resources are stretched thin. Although no direct coordination might be evident, the psychological effect alone could widen the crisis space, forcing major powers to consider responses beyond the naval arena discussed earlier. Over the longer term, the international system would absorb lessons from the confrontation. Naval doctrines would be reassessed, diplomatic red lines clarified, and crisis communication mechanisms scrutinized. Several defense think tanks have previously argued that a single high-speed naval clash could accelerate global shifts toward autonomous systems and pre-delegated authority, reducing reaction times but increasing systemic risk. Whether exaggerated or not, such arguments would gain traction in the aftermath. Ultimately, the consequences of the conflict would be measured not only in damaged ships or disrupted trade, but in altered expectations. Trust would erode, caution would harden, and future encounters at sea would be interpreted through the lens of this event. Even if fighting ceased quickly, the shadow it cast would linger, reinforcing a shared understanding that in contested waters, the distance between deterrence and disaster is far smaller than anyone is comfortable admitting.